So often when it comes to money topics, there comes with a layer of judgment, embarrassment. When we think about small business, the first thing I see is that business owners are not paying themselves. People undercharge and not making enough to live. I had been working with a client for a few years. We were really working on end margins. And then they came to me one year and said, "Hey, we want to refinance our house." I said, "Ooh, hold on." But I said, "We know where we are." I said, "We've got to increase revenues."
I want y'all to know you are a whole person with personal finances and business finances. We do not mix the two.
Let's say, and I open my purse and all I have is my business credit card. I need groceries. Okay, that is not the end of the world. But if every time I walk in Publix, I pull out that business card, that is a problem.
Well, Melissa, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I know that you made such a big difference in my business and the way that I just handle everything financially. And I know that you're going to be such a blessing to our listeners. So thank you for being here today. I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you, Tashana, so much for having me. I look forward to diving in.
Yeah. So I just want to kick things off by having you tell the audience about who you are, what you do.
So, my name is Melissa Kennebrew. I run MBK Financial Services, which is a fractional CFO tax and accounting firm, and we serve small businesses nationwide.
Yay, yay, yay. So you preach compassionate financial leadership. Tell me what that means to you and why it's so important.
So often when it comes to money topics, there comes with a layer of judgment, a layer of embarrassment, a layer of people expecting them to be, at the end of a race when they may be at the beginning or in the middle. And so, compassionate financial leadership means that we come from a place where we are not expecting anything. It's kind of like when you start a class and the teacher says, everybody has an A, and we start with an A and we go from there.
Yeah,
That's a big part of what we try to do here at MBK Financial Services. And so every single person's starting point is their starting point, and we're going to grow from there without judgment, shame, embarrassment.
I love that. I think so many people, especially business owners, we're good at what we're good at, okay?
Absolutely.
Like, I don't change my own oil and I do not keep my own books and do my own taxes for a
Absolutely.
reason. Melissa handles all of that for me. um, and her amazing team. Tell me what inspired you to start MBK in the first place.
So I'll take you a couple of steps back in the journey,
Please.
which is when I started doing taxes. So I was a recent college grad, was preparing to get my MBA, and my parents were paying what I felt like an exorbitant amount of money to have their taxes done. And they were, just standard middle class family. They had two W-2 jobs, some investments. And I said, this is crazy. You should not be paying this much money to get your taxes done. And so I said, can I do your taxes? And I'm pretty sure my dad was like, absolutely not. And my mom was like, yes, go for it. And truly, they were client number one. And, literally till today, they are still my supporters. I lost my dad, but still extreme supporters. And so that started me on this tax journey. And it was literally like my best friend was like, "Oh, we do my taxes." My cousin was like, "Oh, we do my taxes." And so I was like, man, I like doing taxes more than I like my day job. And so then I started doing the training and the education and getting certified with the IRS so this could become a full-fledged business. And that was 16 years ago
Wow.
when I established MBK Financial Services. And keep in mind, we focus on tax. Obviously, we focus on books and helping small businesses, but also focusing on the education piece.
Right.
Really
Right.
just making sure that, we can serve a community that may not have the experience or education they need to be successful in this space.
I love that. What are some of the most common challenges that your clients come to you with?
Whew. Well, let me take a quick peek because I made some notes.
Okay.
When we think about small business, so often we are doing what we love,
Mm-hmm.
and what we're really good at. And so the first thing I see is that oftentimes business owners are not paying themselves. They don't have the margin to pay themselves. They don't have the margin to pay their taxes. And it's really just a lack of visibility on their finances.
Mm-hmm.
Another issue that I see, once again, because we're doing the work that we love, is that people undercharge. So when you're undercharging, then you do end up in a space where you don't have money to pay yourself and you don't have money to save for taxes. But that's where we really have to break down the business and understand who's our target audience, what is the market calling for from a pricing perspective, and get our business to a healthy financial place so that we can do the things that we need to do. We should not be working 40, 50, 60 hours in a business and not making enough to live. So, those are some of the things: not paying ourselves, not charging properly, and not having visibility to our finances.
Wow. Wow. I can remember being there, right?
Yeah.
Being in that space. And I think that there's so much fear that people have around finances. And, here at BBS, we work with primarily female founders and leaders. So um, there's a different level of avoidance, fear, and anxiety
Hmm.
that women have specifically around finances. And again, the shame that you mentioned earlier
Yes.
um, about telling somebody the truth.
Right.
Like, it's a mess back here. The kitchen's dirty.
Mhm.
It's really dirty. And I think I saw a roach. Like
Right.
seriously.
Hmm.
That's how finances feel. And as a marketer, I'm working on the other side of it, trying to create visibility so we can bring in sales. And I
Yes.
and I ask my clients like, okay, how much money do you want to make, right? How much
Right.
money do you need to make? What is a conservative goal for finances in a given month? What is the stretch goal? Um, and a lot of women don't. I'm like, huh?
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
I do all that coaching for free.
Right.
Oh, my hourly rate is this, but the
Right.
industry standard is this.
Right.
Yeah, so you bring such a calm and confident energy to this work. And I guess we've been working together for a couple of years now.
Yes. Yes.
And what my business looks like financially today versus what it looked like when I came to you, even though I was working with somebody before I came to you,
Mhm.
um, it's very different. And I'll just tell the audience, as someone who's worked with you and knows other women and other business owners just in general, and she doesn't work with just women, um, you really have a holistic approach to financial services and the way that you coach along the way.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many financial folks that I've worked with, CPAs and fractional CFOs who do not want to tell people what to do.
Correct.
Folks are literally hiring for your expertise.
Yes.
And I love that you so freely give it, when you obviously in a client engagement, but going above and beyond. Um, how do you really I know that you craft strategies that are specific to each client. How do you kinda go about that?
Well, going back to, the compassionate part of what we do, everyone has a different starting point. And so if a client oftentimes clients are at a different starting point and their goals are different. So to give you an example, if I, am working with a business that is not very profitable
Mm-hmm.
and they don't want to be, then we have different goals, right? Our goals may be to ensure that we are planning for succession, that we're planning for retirement, that we're planning for, what does this look like in 5 years as we begin to exit the business? Because their work, their goal is not to have an extreme amount of profitability. They don't necessarily, they already have the house, they already take the trips, they already have the things that they need, and they're at the stage where they're exiting. And
Mm.
you have a newer business, they may have revenue targets that they're trying to hit, not necessarily profitability targets, but revenue targets so they can pour back into the business. So then once again, profitability may not be the goal, it's the revenue target so they can reinvest. And many of us who are in existing, I would say middle career businesses,
Mm-hmm.
we are looking for profitability. We are planning for retirement. We do need savings. And so those are totally different goals. Those are three different types of businesses
Absolutely.
with different goals. And when I first get into an engagement with a client, I say, hey, what are our goals? What are we looking for? What is our plan? And I'll tell you another quick story that led into that because I won't pretend that my very first business I worked with it was that polished. I had been working with a client for a few years, and we were really working on, I would say, thin margins from a profitability perspective. And then they came to me one year and said, "Hey, we want to refinance our house." I said, "Ooh, hold on." I said, I don't know if that's going to be possible, knowing how your financials look and you being a self employed couple. And they were devastated. But I said, we know where we are. We know what we're trying to get to, which is the refinance. I said, we've got to increase revenues. We've
Mm.
got to increase revenues. We've got to increase profitability because on paper, you have to be able to afford it.
Absolutely.
They're like, we're paying for our house now. Yes, but it's a challenge. Like, we're running on thin margins. And so at that point, they pivoted and really went and got bigger clients so that they could get the profitability that they needed to meet their financial goals.
And I just want people to take note of how you are making this correlation between what's happening in the business and how it feeds into the personal of our lives. Listen, we're business owners. We're making money to feed ourselves, right? And to achieve personal goals. And, you know, you took me through a process of, getting some things cleared up in my business. And I literally asked you for advice and did the same thing on the personal side of my finances. And I want y'all to know how she is really making this correlation and looking at it from a holistic perspective. You are a whole person with personal finances and business finances. We do not mix the two. However, however, um, you're using the money that you make from your business to achieve personal goals.
Mhm.
And so many financial people that are helping business owners will never even say, they can't ask them a question. They don't feel safe enough. Oh, that's a good word.
Mhm.
We talk a lot about compassion, but there's a level of safety that you are providing through that compassion. That compassion is leading to people feeling safe. But people don't feel safe to have these conversations with the folks they paying.
Exactly. That is so true. So true.
And the provider doesn't have the confidence
Mhm.
to say, "Nah, girl.
Mhm.
No, sir. That's a no-go."
That's not a good idea. Hmm.
And if they, people do what they do, not everyone's going to take your advice,
Right.
but at least you have done your due diligence in saying, hey, I don't really think that's a great idea.
Right.
Right. So tell me, what are some of the signs that you see in businesses when you know they are ready for a fractional CFO?
Mm. This is a great question. What I have found in a place where I even moved from doing small business taxes, small business bookkeeping to a more hands-on strategic approach with clients. And keep in mind this need for a fractional CFO rarely has to do with the black and white financials of an organization. It is typically when you have an organization that wants to grow and potentially wants to um, change the trajectory of where they've been in the past. In those instances, they need a partner. They
Right.
don't need someone that is kind of throwing financials over their shoulder and like, here, go figure it out, or is calling them at tax time saying, hey, you need to write a check. They actually need a partner in their business. If you think about it from a business perspective, running a small business, you often feel alone.
Mm-hmm.
You are here like, okay, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I make this decision? Should I make this hire? Right. I'm going to give you another quick example of a situation. I have a client who, was just right under a million, really wanted to pass the $1 million mark. And he set up a call with me at the end of 2024 and said, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And he's like, I got $1 million contract. And I'm like, that's amazing. This is great news. And he was like, but I'm running $1 million business. So this means that, like, do I need double everything? Do I need, how do I scale with $1 million contract? And by the way, that contract was going to require part of his team to be on the road nationwide.
Wow.
And we did an entire strategy session. We literally mapped it out. This is what you're going to need locally to maintain your $1 million book of business. This is what you're going to need on the road. And it was not 2x everything. Some
Right.
roles didn't need to be repeated. I'll give, like, for example, they have company vehicles. We don't need to double the number of company vehicles. We need a vehicle for this work. We need this existing vehicle is going to be deployed here. We literally mapped out the whole program for this $1 million contract. And at the end of the call, he said, Melissa, I was going to turn down this contract because I didn't think I could do it. And I
Yep.
was, of
Yep.
course you can do it. Yes, you can do
Yep.
it. You can do this. And I literally just not only poured into him, not just the nuts and bolts, but poured into him from a supportive, strategic coaching perspective to say, you can do this. And this would not be on your plate if you couldn't do this.
Mm.
And he was so happy. And so part of our strategy was you need to go buy another truck. And I was like, wait till like December 28th, 29th, you're going to get a great deal. Child, he called me 2 days later. I got that truck. He said, but he said, but I'm so excited because now I feel like I have the confidence to get this done. Now, everybody's not going to be looking at $1 million contract, but they are going to be looking at decisions that are going to potentially propel their business to the next level. That's when you need a fractional CFO because you need a partner on your team that can help you get it done.
I love that. And oh, you have such good stories. Um, and it's like, it's so telling to the strategies that you put together to create that financial clarity. Like thinking that I need double everything. It's overwhelming. You
Mhm.
know, I have been in his seat, not $1 million yet, Jesus, but it's coming. But there's been multiple six-figure contracts that I've been like, okay, I can't even, I can't, because we get in our own heads and
Yes.
we don't know um in our own skill sets what it takes to scale at that level. And having a partner like your organization is a game changer, and it provides that financial clarity.
Yes.
And I want to back up a second and ask you how you define financial clarity.
So, for me, financial clarity is a space where, if we think about life in general, and I have um, personally experienced this. I am a planner, and I like to know what's coming ahead of me. And recently, going through some personal things, I realized, hey, life is coming at you regardless, and you're not going to be able to prepare for every scenario. So, coming into 2025, I allowed myself the grace to not plan 12 months worth of activities, to not have, literally every minute of my day sketched out. Because honestly, as a business owner, it's pointless. You don't know what's going to pop up and, on your plate. And so I have been, one, much less stressed, and two, much more productive in a place where I'm looking at what's somewhat immediately in front of me.
Mhm.
So when we think about financial clarity isn't having the, 10-year financial plan or even the 5-year financial plan. I used to hate in job interviews when they would ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Mhm.
I don't know. Like anything can happen in 5 years. But financial clarity means you have an approach that allows you to navigate when things come your way that you're not expecting. 2025 has been a hard year for many small businesses. Financially, all expenses have increased tremendously. It has been a challenge.
Mhm.
And if you have team members, you're also taking into account their personal situation because you want them to have the finances that they need to be able to
Mhm.
live their life and still remain, kind of loyal and dedicated to their job,
Absolutely.
right? And so financial clarity means, what's my approach when things come that we don't expect? Where are my financials today? Where's my profitability sit? And not just looking at, okay, last month this was my number. No, what is my average for the last 3 months? What is my average for the last 6 months? And when I am profitable, where do those funds go?
Right.
Are we reducing debt? Are we increasing our savings? Are we planning for retirement? Are we reinvesting? And so, financial clarity, people think they have to have all the answers. You do not have to have all the answers. You
Right.
do, you do need to have an approach that allows you to navigate things when they come unexpectedly.
I love that. And it's so important for any type of growth, right?
Yes.
It
Yeah.
really is. And you've shared so many stories about like how you provide that financial clarity and how the compassion meets the strategy. And one thing that I love about working with you, and we've talked about it throughout this conversation, is that you're not just focused on numbers, you're focused on the person,
Yes.
and you're bringing heart and strategy together in your work.
Yes.
Um, like, how did you come to that? Like, I don't think that that's something normal for, I'm gonna keep on talking about it, y'all. Y'all can get sick of me if you want. But like it's not normal for if we're being stereotypical and like how we see people in the financial landscape, for them
Mhm.
to smile,
Right.
I'm being facetious. Um, I love all my financial folks out there, but like not to have compassion is usually so black and white.
Yes.
There is no gray.
Yes.
How have you come to this?
Um, my initial plan when I went away to college was to be a psychiatrist. My plan was to do counseling and, to really kind of help people as it related to their mental and emotional health.
Mm-hmm.
And my analytical brain pulled me away from that. So I ended up getting my undergraduate degree in mathematics and then went to business school for finance and accounting. And it's like that part of me never went away. And so once my finance business, really took flight, the thing that set me apart most often was my care for people.
Mm-hmm.
And it can get me in trouble. I am a talker. I love building relationships with my clients. Um, but it also helps me help them more, right?
Yeah.
And understanding who you are as a person is how I can help craft a strategy that meets your personal needs. Because also know that while people say one thing, it is not always, directly related to what they mean or what they need.
Mm.
Right. And so sometimes, there's some interpretation that I have to do based on what a client says versus what is actually um, best for them. And hopefully that doesn't come across in a negative way.
No.
Okay, good. But so I truly believe God made me this way. This is literally, I am sitting in the seat that God designed me to sit in. Um, my connection with people, like He gave me this ability as it relates to analytics, finance, accounting, and being able to help businesses. But He also gave me this compassionate, caring heart that loves to connect with people. And honestly, I feel like it's the best of both worlds because so often I hear from small businesses, they're like, well, no one's ever explained it like this to me, or no one's ever taken the time. We haven't, well, how can I put it? I mean, when I have to call someone and tell them that, they have a significant 5 or even 6 figure tax bill, I'm
Mm-hmm.
typically crying. Like, I'm typically a mess.
Mm.
My heart is like, I feel for them.
Right.
They're going through,
Right.
and helping them understand that, yes, this is where we are. You are not alone. I'm in this with you, but we will get better over time.
Right. You know what I want to call out? And this is not any of the simple questions that I sent you. I want to call out how vulnerability really is our superpower and how vulnerability is your superpower. Because there are so many people who would never, especially in your field, who would never tell the truth and never and see that feeling, caring, compassion um as weakness. And I think so many of us as women are taught to put that heart, that care, that vulnerability, that um compassion to the side to be respected in a given space. So I
Hmm.
just want to encourage people that you don't bring your full self
Yes.
because it is the superpower. It is the reason why you create such wonderful transformation for your clients because you have that heart that you care. You know how many people don't care about sending a client whatever bill they ain't got to pay it. They don't care, you
That's,
know?
yeah.
And, you could very easily see that as a weakness, and it would pervert the gift that God has given you.
Mhm.
But the fact that you said, like, I feel it, I cry, shoot, I know how I would feel having to pay 5, 6 figures
I'd be
in
crying.
taxes,
Mhm.
so don't ever lose that. I just want to encourage you.
Thank you.
Like, that is a superpower. That is why people trust you and they stay with you again and again. And it's why you create such wonderful transformation. And speaking of that transformation, because I feel like, you are a fairy godmother to many, including me. Can you share? Have such wonderful stories. Will you share another story of a transformation that you've seen with your approach to handling finances?
Yes. So, one of the success stories that I've seen as it relates to small business has been a young man who, and it's honestly it's been unbelievable. Um, he was a contractor. He worked for a company. He was a contractor. Really, he brought me on because as a contractor, you typically receive 1099s, and he needed to be able to offset his income with expenses
Right.
and just wanted help with that. And so I was like, sure, I got you. And then he was like, should I start my own company? Like, I don't know. And I was like, I think it's a good idea, to start your own company and you can get paid um, through your company, although you're contracting with another organization. And so we did that. So, he's, I don't know, maybe making 80, $100,000. And the company that he was working for actually went out of business. And so I assumed he was going to go work for another company. And he was like, I think I'm going to do it on my own. Like, I'm going to start doing some contracting on my own. And so I was like, great. And so he starts doing it on his own. And then he goes from like 100,000 to like 300,000.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, man, you're doing good. I was like, we need to do an S Corp conversion immediately. We need to get you on payroll. Let's set you up a retirement account because he's in his 20s. Okay.
Wow.
So,
Beautiful place to be.
yes. So we did all that S Corp conversion, payroll, retirement. And he ended up hiring a friend. So he got a friend to help him with some of the work because there was so much work. And then he said, I think I need an assistant. The day he asked me about an assistant, another friend had called and said, hey, I know someone looking for work. Literally connected them. She
Wow.
starts working for him part time. She goes to work for him full time, right? And I'm still in the mix, just making sure everything is moving along. That following year, Tashana, he goes from 300,000 to a million in business
Wow.
in 1 year.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I'm literally like throwing the papers in the air. I said, okay, we need a budget. Like we literally had to do an entire dashboard for him of financials of what's the plan, where are we going next? Because as quickly as you went from 300 to a million, and of course he had to hire, I mean, he went from being the contractor to hiring multiple contractors.
Wow. That's beautiful.
But it was such a beautiful transformation in under 5 years. Um, Amazing growth. And I should mention this because I mentioned he's a young man. He never changed his salary. So what we did was we increased his salary, put all of it towards retirement, and his take home never changed. Because he was like,
Wow.
I don't, he was like, I'm fine living off of the same
So
amount of money.
smart. So smart. To be that smart in your 20s.
Yes. Yes.
Kudos to him and
Kudos
to
to
you.
and the relationship. He's been amazing. just I am so inspired by his growth. And by the way, the person that I introduced him to, she ended up becoming a full time employee. Like like it's now it's a whole full fledged business with a whole team, and it is phenomenal what they are doing in the marketplace.
That is amazing. And it has to it has to make you feel, I hope it makes you feel amazing to be in the mix of that and to have a hand in that type of transformation for clients, because you're literally changing his whole life, his whole legacy. Um, and you do that for so many. So I want to transition a little bit and kind of get into, pull the curtain back,
Mm,
so to speak. Because you have such a thoughtful process of how you help your clients,
right.
and it really impacts the business at an amazing level.
Mhm.
What's the first thing you do during a client onboarding?
Yes. So, what I typically request, sorry, there's a plane.
I hear it. My dog's barking. There's planes. It's all kind of things. It's okay.
Like, I usually don't hear planes here, but who knows? Um, the first thing I do, and I'm going to focus on a small business engagement for
Mhm.
now. The first thing I want to do is see QuickBooks. So if it's a client who's already had an accountant in the past and they have QuickBooks, I want to see it.
What if they don't have QuickBooks?
And if they don't have QuickBooks, I literally did an onboarding with a client yesterday who didn't have QuickBooks. And so two different paths. So let's say they don't have QuickBooks. We get them set up on QuickBooks, we get all of their bank accounts connected, and that is a short initial onboarding because we need to see their information to be able to have an effective onboarding session. This particular client that I just did onboarding for yesterday, he did connect his bank accounts in advance. So we did have a very productive session,
Awesome.
right? Going through just kind of key vendors, what type of expenses do you have, et cetera, et cetera. But in the event, and to be honest with you, if they haven't had QuickBooks, it is a more straightforward onboarding process. We get in their books, we start playing catch up on whatever time frame exists. And then after we've had a chance to see kind of where the numbers sit, then we sit down and talk about goals. What are our goals for the mid business? What are we looking to accomplish? We go over some metrics, who's on payroll, when is payroll run, those types of things. But it can be a very streamlined process if they haven't been on QuickBooks. For many businesses that have been on QuickBooks, that can be a bit more painful because um, many people assume that bookkeeping is a very easy task. It's light work,
It's
and
not.
it it is not. It is that is probably what takes up a bulk of my time, to be very honest with you. Not bookkeeping itself, but cleanup. So between having messy charts of accounts from prior professionals, between not having proper reconciliations, between information hitting the wrong financial statement. So items that should be on the P&L or on the balance sheet, items that should be on the balance sheet or on the P&L. Um, that can be very painful. And I only have a handful of clients that have an external bookkeeper and I do their taxes. And it's something that I prefer not to do because
Mm.
there is such a varied methodology in how people manage their books.
Wonderful.
But the bookkeeping piece is such a big part of onboarding. I kind of, belabored that point. But I want to understand the numbers before we get into goals. The reason being, if a client tells me that they want to save $20,000 this year, but they are not yet profitable, that is a difficult conversation. And I don't want to, I want the approach to be appropriate for their starting point before we list, a bunch of goals that may not be attainable. Because what may be attainable is that we save $1,000 or $5,000 to begin with, or better yet, we could just be focusing on profitability, which means now we need to review all of the expenses and figure out where we can cut so
Right.
we can get to a profitable place.
I love that. What are some common financial blind spots that you feel like business owners miss?
The number one blind spot that business owners miss is separation of business and personal. That is um, probably one of the most challenging. And I want to touch on this because I think people take this in a different way. Let's say I am at the grocery store
Mm-hmm.
and I open my purse or my wallet, and all I have is my business credit card.
Mm-hmm.
I need groceries. So I'm going to pay for those groceries.
Mm-hmm.
And in my books, I'm going to code that as an owner's draw or personal expense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is not the end of the world. It happens to pretty much every business owner across the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Not a big deal. But if every time I walk in Publix, I pull out that business card, that is a problem.
Absolutely.
You have totally pierced the veil of your limited liability company. If you're an LLC, you are opening yourself up if you end up in an audit situation to now the IRS saying, okay, now I need to see your personal financials as well. Like it is a nightmare. And so having that separation is one of the most important things that we can do. I'll give you another example which ties into what happens when you onboard a new client. When a new client comes to me and says, hey, I commingled my funds and I don't have QuickBooks. I will not go through your personal bank account to pull out information for taxes. Will not do it. There is no way I'm going to be trying to figure out if you went to Target for business supplies or did you go to Target for your kids, birthday party.
Right.
I mean, it that is exhausting.
Yeah.
And so that is one of the blind spots that I think sometimes business owners don't take um, um, as a valid point that we need to consider.
I think you giving the reasons why, like what you do from an audit perspective, from um, not protecting your LLCs if you are one perspective, like that tells people the why, because folks think it's not that big of a deal.
Correct. Yep.
And that's why they do it on a continuous basis. Like we've all got caught slipping,
Right.
right? But that is not the norm. That should not be the norm, right? This has been such a wonderful conversation. I feel like we have to have you back for a part two because there's so much there's so much more I want to talk about. But before we go, I want to have a little fun with you if that's all right.
Okay.
So because you are fun and you're compassionate and you make it kind of fun. Um rapid fire, morning person or night owl?
Night owl, definitely.
One corporate or any buzzword that you wish would go away forever?
Leverage.
Okay. Okay. And what is your coffee or tea order?
My favorite tea order is a grande chai tea latte with almond milk and sweet vanilla cold foam.
Oh, I'm gonna have to try that. That sounds tasty.
So it honestly, it's sinful. It's so
That
good.
sounds tasty.
Yes.
Okay, one last thing. One book every business owner should read.
Eat the frog.
I've never read that.
Oh, you've got to read
You
this.
ain't told me nothing.
Eat the frog. And honestly, I know you pretty well, Tashana. Like
Do you, girl? No, I'm joking. You
I
do.
do. It it may not be it to me it's one of the best. It's one of the best because it can get you through your day a bit more strategically and efficiently. And that's one thing that I recommend for business owners and parents and
Yeah.
look, college student. Look, my son's about to go to college students. It's so good, and it's a very easy read.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get it.
Absolutely,
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being with me today
thank
and
you.
sharing your brilliance and all of your wonderful stories. I know firsthand how powerful your work is and how it transforms businesses, and having your partnership has
Yes,
made all the difference for me in the last 2 years.
thank
If you're listening and you're thinking, "I really need a Melissa in my life," you do.
you do.
And I highly encourage you to connect with her and her team at mbkfinancialservices.com. We'll put it in the show notes. Find her on LinkedIn and all the places.
Yes,
And thank you for joining us. For now, we're going to sign off, but stay rooted, stay connected, and stay in relationship. We'll see you next time.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye.